Good evening. I think I'm on the air. I hope I'm on the air. My name's Dave Goodfriend, and this is the Wednesday night webcast from DerbyWars. And we got a great presentation for you tonight. I'll be joined in just a couple moments by Joey to the K, Joe Christofek. And back in the day, Joe and I used to do a fun TV show. It was called Horsing Around TV. And we started out the career of one Katie Mickelay, now married, Katie Gensler. She'll be on the scene at Keeneland this coming Friday as their outstanding meet starts this weekend. And lots of great stuff from Katie. And also we'll be joined in about 15 minutes time by our friend Matt Benton. He's the racing secretary for DerbyWars. He was involved in the Horseplayer World Series this weekend and actually did himself proud, finishing 12th. So we'll be checking with Matt Benton and Katie Gensler here tonight on the DerbyWars Wednesday night webcast. And what is the Wednesday night webcast? What kind of game is it? Well, let's take a look at the game board. Tonight's DerbyWars Wednesday night webcast has a $49 entry fee, and there were 92 entries for tonight. This game did eventually sell out. Prizes: $4,000. First prize, $1,400. Second prize, $800. Third, $480. Fourth, $360. Fifth, $240. And prices pay out down to $60 in the 12th spot, paying 12 places tonight with very flat payouts. We had two races in the books so far this evening. Both of those races made official. And we had a 4-1 winner at Penn National and a favored winner at Charlestown. Louis Gold, who was 1-9 in the early betting, ended up going off at 6-5. And our leader, a familiar name here on the DerbyWars Wednesday night webcast, going by the screen name of Sophia. That would be Barbara Boley. Barbara Boley, our early leader tonight, as she had the long shot runner-up in race 6 at Penn National, our first DerbyWars race of the evening, and she did have Louis Gold. We had a number of players with both of the winners of the two races, including Brent Sumja, John De Silva, the post picker. Taking a look at some of the other names on the leaderboard, we see Anthony Trezza, you are 2020. He's in a three-way tie for 11th right now with 1940. Mike Lazarus in the mix there, tied for 18th at $16.20. We see the likes of Tony Calabrese, the Funky Monkey, Mark McGuire, Maguru, Dennis Tiernan, Tejas Kid. Scrolling down more on the leaderboard, we see the likes of a Stephen Thompson, The Undertaker. WrestleMania was last weekend. He's tied with Brett Workman, who had the unfortune of sitting with me at the Horseplayer World Series for 3 days last week. Joe Corey, one of the many players who has not yet scored this evening. There we see Whiskey Quick, George Bickey, always seems to be a part of this game. Mingun with a couple entries. You always need a fish or two in the game. We've got Paulie Fish, Paul Fishman, one of my boys from New York, playing tonight. So we got a great crew tonight playing in our DerbyWars $4,000 Wednesday night webcast game. Of course, the focus this week on DerbyWars is the big $100,000 game coming up on Saturday, featuring Derby preps from Aqueduct, from Keeneland, from Santa Anita, and those will be the three tracks we feature in Saturday's $100,000 game: the late races from Aqueduct, the late races from Keeneland, and racing from Santa Anita. So with that, I'm hoping, Ember, that we may have somebody else joining us on Skype here in just a moment or two. Mr. Joe Christofek is ready to go, I've been told. So hopefully Joe will be joining us here in just a couple moments' time. As I mentioned, lots of great stuff going on at DerbyWars this week, highlighted by the 100K game. Qualifiers, we have a 4-spot qualifier tomorrow on Thursday. We actually have a round one game coming up in about 25 minutes time with a few openings for that. And then we're going to have a big round two qualifier coming up on Friday, a 10-spot qualifier. And it does appear as if Mr. Christofek is in the house. Back from Dubai, I'm back from Vegas, Ember's back from New Orleans. The team's all together. There he is, Joey DK. What's up, my man?
Not much. I'm readjusted. Beautiful day in Chicago today. Fantasy baseball drafts left and right. So, yeah, no time to relax. Derby preps, final big week of Derby prep. So, yeah, man, this is like my favorite time of year.
Hey, just real quick, back from Dubai, couple things I want to ask you about Dubai. First of all, regarding the Kentucky Derby, is the horse that won the UAE Derby legit? It seems to be a lot on that horse.
Well, I'd like to welcome all of you who have never heard of the horse before this past weekend to the Moop to Hitch bandwagon. Because I've been following the carnival since the beginning and touted this horse 2 months ago. And he is the real deal. Watch the replay of the race. This horse looks like he will run 1.25 miles. He will stalk. Looks like the Derby pace this year should be legitimate enough. I think the horse that ran second, Moth Tool, I haven't heard anything about whether or not he'll be coming over. But he's a gimmick bomber in the Kentucky Derby if he runs potentially. But as you know, Dave, it's not easy to come over from Dubai. These horses still have to acclimate. They have to show you that they like the racetrack. But one thing that I found very interesting was both Bill Mott and Eddie Keneally in separate conversations said that the dirt track in Dubai is very comparable to the dirt track at Churchill Downs. And this was during the week. This was before the UAE Derby was even run. So that, to me, is a very important tidbit of information.
And what about California Chrome? How he ran in the race, his performance in the Dubai World Cup, and then the post-race decision to ship him to England, take him out of the Art Sherman barn. Were there any rumors or inclinations of this happening before it happened?
Well, Art Sherman in press conferences had mentioned the fact that they were being recruited to Royal Ascot when California Chrome came back to the saddling enclosure. And it's weird at Dubai, they bring the top 3 finishers into the saddling enclosure, the walking ring area, first, second, and third. And I was covering California Chrome all week, so I had to get quotes from the connections of California Chrome. When the horse came back into the winner's circle, Steve Coburn is patting the horse on the shoulder saying, "Good job, boy. We don't have to leave home again. We're going to go back to California. We're going to stay there." He was saying that to the horse. Now, there's no secret that Perry Martin and Steve Coburn aren't getting along. I don't know how the decision came about, but I do know that Perry owns, I believe, 75% and Steve owns 25%. So obviously majority rules. When I woke up the next morning and heard the horse was already basically making preparations to go to Royal Ascot, I was surprised but not shocked because of what I had heard during the week. So it's a very strange situation with the ownership. But for me, I would never send the horse to Royal Ascot to run against the top turf horses in the world. He's run some good races on turf, but he hasn't faced horses of that caliber, not even close. So I got a feeling this decision will come back to bite him in the end.
It's a very interesting decision from an international perspective. It's a fun decision because, it's been a long time since America has shipped over to Europe a star like California Chrome. And, in England, it's a huge deal that California Chrome is there right now.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I think if the horse proves me wrong and is competitive in those grass kind of races, there's talk about him competing at Royal Ascot and potentially coming back to our home track of Arlington and competing in the Arlington Million, and that would be a lot of fun too. So we'll have to see how the season plays out for California Chrome, but obviously having one of America's dirt stars going over to Europe to compete on grass, like I said, he's competed well on the turf in the past. It's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out.
And actual performance in the Dubai World Cup, how would you rate his effort there?
Well, he was caught 4 wide. The pace was honest, and obviously African Story went to push the pace from the inside and set the race up for Prince Bishop. Prince Bishop is a nice horse. This effort was a little bit surprising, considering his efforts previously in the carnival, both last year and this year. They were good. Dubai World Cup caliber good, I'm not quite so sure, but obviously he won the race. Lee ran a good race, had a little bit of trouble, wasn't going to beat Prince Bishop on the night. But Art Sherman said something very interesting, and it's true. You know, they come here a week before the race. They get to gallop over the track, maybe get a half mile or 3/8 of a mile breeze before the race. These horses have been here the entire carnival. They're acclimated. They're used to the racetrack. They've run competitively over it 2 or 3 times leading up to the World Cup, and that obviously may have been the advantage in the end.
Lots of interesting happenings over in Dubai, Joe. But in 3.5 weeks or so, you're going to start out a new gig as the paddock analyst at Churchill Downs. And 4.5 weeks is a little race called the Kentucky Derby. Had some major preps last weekend in Florida and in New Orleans, in addition to the UAE Derby. You have any thoughts on the Florida Derby or the Louisiana Derby?
Well, you know, I think Materiality is a horse that definitely has upside and is moving forward, but it beat a pretty decent field in the Florida Derby. And in the last 16th of a mile, he was getting away from him. So if you're looking for an up-and-coming type horse, I think he might be the one. International Star just keeps getting the job done. 3 in a row at Fairgrounds. He's doing it in workmanlike kind of performances. He's going to be a long shot at Kentucky Derby Day, but it's hard to fault his consistency.
Well, lots of great stuff going on with the Derby right now. While you were in Dubai, Ember was in New Orleans covering the Louisiana Derby, picking up some videos and doing some things. And myself and a lot of members of the contest community, people who are involved with the webcast, for example, a lot of them were out in Vegas for the First Player World Series last week, Joe. And I just got back a couple hours ago, and I can just say I had a good time.
Yeah, those contests are always fun, especially, you know, the big contests like that, the camaraderie, and obviously, you know, the competition too. And, you know, we filmed some segments from the Horse Player World Series a few years ago when we had the Horse and Around TV show on here in Chicago, and it made for a really great feature. And, you know, that kind of ties into to one of our guests tonight.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to having the former Katie Mickelay, now known as Katie Gensler, of course. She's going to join us in about 45 minutes time tonight. And Joe, you were the one that gave her start.
Yeah, she was working on the front desk at Arlington. She is an attractive young lady with a bubbly personality. And this was my first venture in producing a TV show. And honestly, I thought, okay, she's pretty. She knows enough about horse racing. She has a bubbly personality. We're just going to throw her on TV. Well, she turned out to be a little bit of a work in progress, to say the least. But she gained her experience. We did some really good feature stuff with her, and I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But, man, once she got into a situation, and her first job was at Hawthorne, where she really had to learn the game and really had to dive into the information and really learn it, she put in the time. She got good at it. Her on-camera presence is sensational, and I'm very proud of her.
We're really looking forward to have Katie Gensler joining us here tonight on the DerbyWars webcast in about 45 minutes time. But coming up in just a minute or two is going to be somebody that's very important to DerbyWars, to the team of DerbyWars. And before we bring Matt on, Joe, I don't know if you've ever met Matt, but he's a very passionate, loves racing. He went to the University of Arizona racetrack program. We kind of picked him up off the waiver wire after Timeform had some budgetary issues, and he's been just a real boon to us. He manages the games, he puts the games on the board, runs the board, and I can't say enough good things about Matt Benton. One of the things he does that I love is he cares about his job. He brings passion to the workplace every day, Joe, and that's really, really important.
Yeah, it's very important, and I wish we had 200,000 more of Matts, because that's what this game needs, is an infusion of young talent, people that not only love the game but take their job seriously, and in addition to that are good at it, because the next generation is what's going to carry us forward. Right now, we've got a combination of people that have been around a long time, the middle group, which includes myself and yourself, and then the younger generation that's coming up. And with social media, contests, and different types of technology pushing this game forward, it's important for the younger generation to get involved and share all the information and the passion with their friends.
I couldn't agree with you more on that, Joe. We look forward to having Matt on in just a couple moments. Just getting back to the webcast game for a moment. We're in the last minute to get your selections in for the 7th at Penn National, which serves as the 3rd contest race of the evening. About 5 minutes away until the 4th contest race closes on the DerbyWars clock. That's the 6th at Mountaineer. We also have about 5 minutes until the 5th race at Charlestown closes. That is our centerpiece race, the 5th race of the contest. So we've got 3 contest races coming up in the next 5 minutes or so. So looking forward to speaking with Matt Benton. It is not Matt Bernier, folks. It is Matt Benton. If there is any... there's differences, but one Matt B is not the same as another Matt B.
No, we're all individuals, and I'm sure there's some Dave G's floating around too that are nowhere close to being you. So that's a perfect example.
Another David Gutfreund that lives in Chicago.
Really? Have you met?
I have not met I've not had the pleasure of meeting the man with that name.
I'm sure he has about 10% of the incomparability that you have.
Wow. We'll just leave it at that. We have Mr. Matt Benton on the phone. I see his name popped up on my Skype screen. Matt, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I can't see video quite yet, though.
Well, see where the little camera is, and there's like a line through it?
I see it.
Now, there you go.
Wow, you are...
Is Mr. Matt Benton in his Wildcat hat, still wearing it with pride after the debacle over this past weekend. What the heck happened to them in the Elite Eight, Matt?
All I can say is it's a good thing it happened before Kentucky, because I didn't think they had much of a shot against Kentucky, so maybe it's a good thing.
Losing to Wisconsin, though, 2 years in a row at the Elite Eight.
Yeah. They have trouble with Big Ten. Ohio State put them out, and I don't know. They just I thought this was the team to do it, but I didn't like the way they matched up against Kentucky, so maybe this was a good thing.
Yeah, see, look at Matt's already putting a positive spin on things here.
Well, he's a glass half full kind of guy.
Well, there you go, and that's good when you're playing the horses, because obviously you got to be able to bounce back off of tough losses and learn lessons from your defeats.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more.
Matt, tell us a little bit about your experience this past weekend. There were almost 750 people in the Horse Player World Series, prize pool of about $700,000. And lo and behold, on Saturday afternoon, you found yourself in pretty darn serious contention trying to win the $260,000 first prize.
Sure. It never really felt like I had contention to take the top spot, so that may have actually helped me, where I wasn't tightening up whether what can I do to really win this. So the first day I had a 10-1 winner at Aqueduct who was a third-time starter, who I liked a lot, and then I paired it up with 3 or 4 seconds at decent prices. Going into day 2, I really didn't have a lot that I liked, and it showed. I think I only scored 200 points, which is a second place, finisher, and just not a lot. So going into day 3, I got a note from someone who I'm close with, who's mentored me through this game, and he said, just go back to what you know. And a lot of my success comes from early life horses in their first 5 lifetime races. So Gulfstream 2 turns up to be a maiden race with a bunch of firsters and some second-time starters, and I had a couple of horses I liked in there. I ended up playing Dale Romans at 35-1. He ends up winning the race. And my best play of the day was a Gary Siaka horse in Aqueduct Race 6 who paid $36. And all of a sudden, I'm right there and I'm in it.
Was your heart beating? Were you getting all excited? Were you I mean, I
the
was
old
sitting.
me, the old me would have been really excited. I've learned a lot that once those two come in, you need to stay calm and be prepared for what's coming up next. And my goal at that point was just to keep putting points on the board. I would have before I would have just started stretching and saying I gotta put this away right now, and I gotta just press and find horses because I'm hot. I've done that too many times and fallen apart. So I went back to the drawing board. I saw the rest of the horses that I liked, and I tried to just stick with them and play horses that I really liked.
Well, it sounds like it worked out pretty well, and you finished 12th overall. How much did you get for finishing 12th, and did you pick up any day money on Saturday with that long shot that beat me in the second race at Gulfstream and the Gary Siaka horse that we both shared?
So 12th overall was 3,300, and I placed third on the daily for Saturday, which was another 3,500. So I think the net was 68 for both prizes.
6,800. That can be pretty dangerous when you're in Vegas.
That's the other thing. Again, I feel like a changed man. Before, I would have been out and getting in trouble, and I actually didn't even play the next day's contest, which the Orleans was offering, because I just didn't feel I was prepared enough for it. So yeah, I went home and we went out for a nice meal and I went to bed.
Anyone that's successful in this game at any level, tournaments, daily horseplay, will tell you that, being patient and showing that kind of discipline is the key to success. So, and it takes, I don't care what your personality is, it takes time to learn that discipline. I remember back when I was in college and first learning the game, by losing as much as I did, I learned a lot from losing. And then you get to that point where you say to yourself, okay, there's just some days where I just feel like playing the races. I just feel like gambling. And there's other days, especially in these tournaments, where you just have to be focused, you have to be pointed, and you have to be prepared. And if you don't feel like you have an advantage in any wager, you probably shouldn't be playing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more again. The problem that I would run into is I would get success on some kind of angle or some kind of situation, and it was very early success, and I all of a sudden thought this was going to be a prolonged, this is going to make me money, or this is going to be successful in the long term, and I fooled myself into thinking it until it's far too late to go back and realize, oh, wait a second, this really isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. So.
And anything in life, anyone can tell you anything and try to give you advice, but until you learn those lessons on your own, they're really not real.
Well, one of the reasons Matt might not have felt as if he had the time to play on Sunday was because in addition to playing the Horsepower World Series, he was building game boards for DerbyWars, making sure that things were going on. And Matt, I briefly mentioned some of what your role is with DerbyWars. Why don't you, in your own words, describe what you do on a day-to-day basis with DerbyWars?
Sure. So my first goal is try to understand the wide variety of players that we have and what their interest in doing on the site is. So, we have different types of players. Some want to play small table, big payout games, or some want to try to qualify for the next big game. So I watch a lot of the board and what works and what doesn't, and try to figure out what everyone wants to play. And it's different where, you can listen to people and hear what they say, but really what talks is people entering games, and to have a good knowledge of what games they're entering and what's really hot, and then to try to adjust the board each day and each week to that. So that's a lot of what I do is seeing what players want to play and then trying to best, put my best reflection of that is what's on the tournament board.
You're not just throwing up games and hope they stick. There's actually a method to your madness.
Well, I hope it shows a little bit on what goes up, because there is a method, and a lot of the last couple hours has been me going through PPs of Saturday's races to see what races are going to be in the $100,000 game. So it's not. I mean, even a game like this tonight. This is a tough game because there are things that I think that people wouldn't prefer in there, such as 3 tracks, or we don't want to finish. I know a lot of guys don't want to finish the last 2 races
Right.
At the same time, we want to have a little run up into the last race. So sometimes we can meet all those criteria. Other times we're doing our best to fit as many as we can.
Have you seen, Matt, and this is a question, obviously, first of all, how long have you been putting the games together on DerbyWars?
This is just barely a year, so just
okay.
My year anniversary is coming up.
So you've seen the big time growth in the last year. Are there certain categories that are showing more growth than others? The smaller games with the higher stakes, the larger games with the smaller stakes. Where are you seeing some of the growth?
Anything that so I think a lot of guys really want to try to move into a bigger game with small stakes. So the difficult part is when people first get involved, they think that maybe, and it might not be the game for them, but they want to see the winnings from that first game immediately. But eventually, as they convert, guys really, and this is what I want to do. I know this is what a lot of people would like to do, is turn a little bit into a lot and enjoy the ride trying to get there. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So and I think that's always where the growth is going to be, is trying to have interesting ways to get there, and rewarding ways along the way as you keep making those steps.
It's comparable to the NHC in that way, right, Dave? Where you're trying to qualify to get to the NHC, turning a tournament victory into something potentially much bigger.
Or doing what I did in Vegas last weekend, which is turning my second place finish in the post-limit, the tournament the day after the World Series, into a World Series of Poker main event seats. So, different people have different ideas.
There you
go. Took my
winnings
from Sunday and I went straight to the Rio and bought myself into the World Series of Poker.
That's called a parlay.
It is called a parlay. Matt, you were talking about the 100K game, and you were looking at past performances. Heck, I don't even get consulted on these things anymore. So what did you decide on? What races are we using for the 100K game on Saturday?
So it's not official yet, but we're looking at 7 through 11 for Santa Anita, Keeneland, and Aqueduct, which
that's easy enough.
It's easy to remember. I'm going to go back and make sure I didn't miss anything, but preliminary, that's what it's going to be, and it's easy to remember.
7-11, Aqueduct, Keeneland, Santa Anita. Those are your races for the 100K game on Sunday. Each of those cards highlighted by a Derby prep: the Wood Memorial at Aqueduct, the Bluegrass at Keeneland, the Santa Anita Derby at Santa Anita, and of course, there will be stakes-filled cards for all three of those tracks, aren't they, Matt?
Yeah, almost. And I mean, I don't think there's one claiming race in there, and most everything is. It's a lot of stakes. I want to say maybe 10 stakes.
Okay, that works.
Yeah.
And I imagine that there'll be ways tomorrow and Friday for people to win their way into the 100K game, Matt?
Absolutely. We got 4 spots tomorrow, and the last few at Aqueduct, and most of the card at Santa Anita. And then we're gonna go for 10 on Friday, which is going to be opening day at Keeneland, and it's probably going to have a bit of Santa Anita in there as well. And I think we're going to put Aqueduct into. We're just going to try to get it a little bit later, so guys on the West Coast and other guys can try to qualify to get in there. But it's going to be a big day at Keeneland and pretty much everywhere else, because it's the prelude to the Saturday stakes cards.
It's nice when you can go East Coast, Midwest, West Coast. Nobody has a decided advantage. If you're a West Coast guy, a Midwest guy, or an East Coast guy, there's balance in those tournaments, which I think is the most fair way to do it.
Yeah, the guys at Santa, if you got to know Santa Anita though, because it all is going to come down to Santa Anita at the end. And if you don't know Santa Anita well enough, you're going to put yourself at a disadvantage when it's really money time.
And and unfortunately, Matt, that is a reality of tournaments, whether they're live using the entire card, like what we just went through at the Horsepower World Series, or like you do at the NHC. On the Sunday of the NHC, the final couple races are always going to be Santa Anita, just because of the way the time and the scheduling works out.
Sure. I mean, I was never really a big California player until I started playing in contests, and I forced myself to learn because that's what it all comes down to in the end, usually. And a lot of time it's that last race at Santa Anita, the maiden claiming 20,000, 14-horse field, that you better know some trainers and some different angles on those guys.
Yes, sir, that is the case. And Matt, what was your experience in tournaments and contests before we recruited you to be a part of DerbyWars?
So the first one I went to was in Albany, New York, a Capital OTB contest, which I actually won, and I thought it was going to be super easy. So I won the contest. I got shipped out to the spring version of the Orleans contest as part of the prize. And it was a 3-day win-only contest. I ended up second or third in the second day, which was opening day at Keeneland. And I ended up tied third overall. So I think I netted $30,000. So in my first two contests, I thought I had everything figured out, and I found out really quickly that I didn't. So the Orleans contests really are what got me in, and I always try to make it out there for those contests, because my type of play lends itself to all the optional plays as opposed to the mandatory bets. So that was, I would say that's probably 5 or 6 years ago now.
And this was not your first Horseplayer World Series then?
No, I had a couple. The problem with a few of my entries was I was taking really long stabs, and you never got enough credit for the over 20-1, so I scaled back on those those really big long shots.
Different people have different theories about those things, and all I'll say, Matt, is I'm in that camp. I am not in the camp that likes to be playing over 30-1s that you only get 20-1 for. We could have a long-winded conversation about that. But what I'd like to take the next question to something similar but different is, from what you're doing on a day-to-day basis on DerbyWars, what can you pass along to the people watching tonight that you have learned about playing tournaments from having worked on the other side as much as you have?
I would say the biggest thing, and this goes through a lot, is to wait as long as you possibly can to deviate from the game plan. There are so many times that players start to play long shots because one hits or two hit, and they think that they need to start betting on long price horses that they don't really like. So I think about it as like a college basketball game. You need to wait as long as you can until you start following and change the strategy. So a team like Virginia was in the tournament, and they're a very defensive team, and all of a sudden they're down 8 points. So they're going to try to play a different style, and it's not their style, and it's not what they're good at. I've seen a lot of times where players have learned this, and then they continue to just chip and chip and chip away and get themselves alive to the last 2 or 3 races, where they can then, either bomb then or do whatever they please. But I see a lot of times, and this has actually helped me in this contest at the Orleans, was I never went away from the game plan when I still was alive to the prize pool. And I would, because when you deviate from that for a long period of time in a contest, it throws your entire game off, and it's hard to recover.
Yeah, every contest is its own animal, but that's a really, really sound piece of advice, Matt. If we could turn the page and change course a little bit, any thoughts on the 3 big preps this weekend and going into this weekend? Do you have a Derby horse? Do you have a couple of Derby horses? We all want to pick the winner of the Derby. We all want to catch a ticket on the Derby. We all love following the 3-year-old races leading up to it. What are your thoughts on the crop and maybe this weekend's races as well?
So this crop has been extremely frustrating for me because I pick horses. Rarely do I play a horse that's less than 10-1. And there hasn't really been a horse that's been more than 10-1 that's been live in any of these.
Which makes for a good Derby, because all these horses are going to come together, sure, and a lot of them are going to be 10-1.
Yeah. With my process and everything that I do, I think the best looking horse and the best visual horse that I've seen, the horse I'm really excited about, is Prospect Park. And I haven't looked at the entries or too much into it yet, but his races, and I'm not a big jockey guy, but once DeSormo has gotten on, this is an extremely difficult horse to ride, but DeSormo gets along with him as best he can. And if he sneaks in, I'd like him like a well-beaten third almost that gets, he's stuck on the rail and he kind of does little goofy things. But I mean, his stride, once he figures everything out, he's got a lot of potential.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think that's a horse who has upside, obviously running in the Santa Anita Derby this coming weekend against Dortmund. If he happens to beat him, then he'll be one of the favorites on Kentucky Derby Day. I would almost rather see him not win the race, but run really well where he can take another step forward on the first Saturday in May, because I think he's progressive, and I think he's one of the more naturally talented horses in this crop.
Sure. His deal is the first turn. If he tries to go out about 3 or 4 wide, he tries to blow out wide. So hopefully we can get him out there about 6 wide and then come in and finish the race.
You don't want to be 20 wide in the first turn of the Derby.
That's right.
Hey guys, real quick, we do have the $4,000 webcast game very much in progress. Halfway through 5 races in the book. And our leader in pretty much a chalk fest is Justin Hill. Hiller 1987 with a score of $45.80, having scored in 4 of the 5 races so far. As a matter of fact, Justin had the first 4 winners in tonight's webcast game. Mo Skeet is in second. That's Skeeter Saska. Hater George Esposito in third. And we have a 2-way tie for fourth between Mark Morey, Easygoer, and Henning Hansen, HCH. We have Jason Lawrence, 6th. Mike Lazarus in 7th. Kings Dunes, Beau Pommier in 8th. And a 2-way tie for 9th between Human Z and Derby Duet at $32.60. And more than a third of the players have scored more than $20 thus far. Very competitive game halfway through the Wednesday night webcast.
Only takes one.
If there's one to be out there, this might be another one of those contests, Joe, where there is no 20-1 that bails people out.
Right, for sure.
And this might be one of those contests where it takes 2 or 3 where you've got to literally connect the dots, Matt.
That's it. Like I said, if you have done your homework and you know what's coming up and you know where the bomb races are, you know where there's a price that you may or may not like, it's important to stay in that and really to know the last 3 to 4 races and how open they are to a long shot and how strong your opinions are in those races.
Just real quick, we have 4.5 minutes on the DerbyWars clock for the 8th at Penn National, for the 7th at Mountaineer, and about 11.5 minutes time until the 6th at Charlestown Survey is our 8th contest race of the night. Now, Matt, you and I and Mr. Mike Shuddy, we were on the social scale last week. I've never, and I mean ever, and this is not an exaggeration, I've never been as social at a handicapping tournament as I was this weekend. I was out for dinners, 2 to 3 hour dinners, 4 straight nights. And it was different, but it was a great time, Matt. We had some great company at all the dinners.
Yeah, no, it's great to catch up with all the players, and the feedback is very, very much appreciated from everyone. I wish it was the case where we could just snap our fingers and everyone would be happy right away. And the way it is though is, all the feedback we get, some of the stuff we can implement in an instant, but everything else, we're in the process. So, everyone that sends feedback to the support box or we talk to in person, it's all taken very seriously and it's all taken into account when we move forward with everything. So I would say to everyone, always send feedback because it's always taken seriously and it's always taken into account. Sometimes the changes aren't always implemented immediately, though.
Well, Matt, I wasn't necessarily talking about business about the dinners. I was talking about, just getting together with Saturday night we were with Jared Dinkin and Joe Corey and
Sure.
Mark McGuire and Dust, and oh God, I'm gonna miss people. Dennis was there, and Barbara was there. Their nephew Henry was there. Brett was there with his dad. You know, we had dinner with Moomy on Friday night. We had a great crew, including Jonathan Kinchin and Nick Tamaro on Wednesday night. I mean, we were just out and about. We spent a lot of money at Canal Street, didn't we?
Dave, I was expecting dinner there again Sunday night, Dave. You ran out on me after you cashed your ticket. I didn't know you had to get to the Rio that quick.
I had to do something with that money. Now, yeah, you know, I can only speak for myself, Matt, but I enjoyed sitting with you and Brett and everybody that we hung out with, and Dennis McCormick and, you know, the whole crew over the weekend. I wasn't too obnoxious to put up with for 3 or 4 days, was I?
No, Dave. You were Dave.
Amazing how my mood got better on Sunday, huh?
It was an interesting change of events.
Matt is politically correct, but you kind of know what he's saying as you read between the lines.
Yeah, Dave became Laurel's worst enemy to Laurel's biggest fan on Sunday.
I just want to know if there was any tequila involved.
Surprisingly, no. I think we were running on fumes at that point, though.
No, there was no tequila, Joe. But what Matt's talking about on Saturday, there was 3 races at Laurel, a track which one could argue shouldn't have been in the tournament in the first place. And the longest shot on the board came in 3 straight races. And I was like, 4-letter word Laurel this, 4-letter word Laurel that. And the next day, Laurel came back on Sunday, and they had a mandatory payout in their pick 5. 20-cent pick 5 jackpot wager was their closing day, so they had to pay it out. They had a $102,000 carryover, and there was only $175,000 bet into a pool with a mandatory payout and a $100,000 carryover. And I went from hating Laurel to loving Laurel after getting somewhere between 2 and 3 times what the payout should have been and what it actually was. It was a beautiful confluence of events.
Yeah, I think you should run out of suite at Laurel when they reopen. Throw a party.
Well, I think that the fact that, like what Dave said about the handle on the carryover, first of all, I don't think anyone knew it in that room. And there were hundreds of horse players in the room. Nobody knew that this Laurel carryover was happening except for Dave, I think. That shows you how few people were watching Laurel, and even goes to his point about it being in the contest. And
what's funny is, Matt, is from a contest perspective on Sunday, I literally, even though I put together a pick 5 ticket, I never even considered playing a Laurel race in the contest on Sunday. It was, you know, it was an opportunity. I took it, but I wasn't going to use any of those horses in the contest. And for those
work out sometimes.
And I did, for what it's worth, I did manage to finish second in the Sunday contest, the Beat the Champions contest, $300 buy-in, $160 of his hard-earned money, so he didn't bother entering. Thanks, Matt. I could have used that $90 of yours. I got about 30% of the prize pool. So as far as I'm concerned, you owe me $90 for not
Dave had an amazing go of it, though, because somehow going into the last few races, the leader was at about 1,100 points, and Dave's 2 tickets had been dueling the entire way, and he got them up to 950 and 910 going to the last few races, and surprisingly kept his cool through the entire thing as much as he could, wondering why he couldn't get more on the one ticket than the other. But in reality, it helped him immensely going to the last few races.
I mean, it was weird. I mean, I had 2 tickets going like the last 2 or 3 races that had almost exactly the same score on them. I think at one time I was 9th and 10th in the standings. And they had similar scores with completely different horses on it. And I don't know how you do that sometimes. It's just like, why can't I have just, instead of 6 cashes on one ticket and 5 cashes on another, why can't it be like 8 and 2? The problems with playing multiple entries. You
It was very entertaining. I would have bought a ticket to it to watch the show.
Well, knowing Dave as well as I do, just by the way you tell the story and his reactions to it, I can come up with a pretty good visual as to how it all played out. But in the end, you ran second. Where did your other entry run?
They were only paying 5 spots. The other entry finished 11th or 12th.
Okay. Well, you pushed your way forward with one in the end, so that's really what
I am already qualified for next year's. I'm one of the first 2 qualifiers for next year's Horseplayer World Series. By the way, folks, the price of poker or the price of handicapping in the Horseplayer World Series is going up. The entry fee for 2016 up to $1,500. Any thoughts, Matt?
I think it's a good thing. I'm not sure they're probably not gonna get close to the numbers, but I think with their setup, I don't think it could grow to many more entries, and I don't think it should grow to many more entries than 750. That's a lot of players, and if they do, then they can handle it. But I think it's a good thing.
Let me ask a question. So, I hear a voice from above.
I hear Empress.
I hope she keeps it clean.
I think we're good.
Okay. My question is, if it's $1,500 to get in, and say 3 people wanted to put in $500 apiece to buy 2 entries, would all 3 of those people have a place to sit, or is it just one person representing that entry?
All 3 of them can end up getting seats in there, but there can only be one name on the entry itself. They're not allowed to have partners on the entries.
Right. So if there's a partnership, they can all at least sit together and discuss.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We had a nice DerbyWars table set up. You get there early, and so.
Okay, cool.
All right, Mr. Benton, you have any other final thoughts you want to pass along? Any shout-outs? Anything that I haven't asked you about? Anything you want to talk about regarding DerbyWars? Now's your chance. It only took you a year to get on the webcast.
I would say anyone interested in the 100K, don't wait, because all of a sudden it can happen in just an hour or 2 where all of a sudden 5, 10 spots are just gone. And it's interesting to see when these games start to get up to that top of that hill, and then all of a sudden the entries just roll in. There's a breaking point to the game, and if you're waiting, it could happen at any point where all of a sudden there's no entries. So that would be.
I have one final thought for Matt, and I expect you to implement this tomorrow.
Sure.
Have you ever thought of having categorized games where you have King of the Turf, King of the Maiden Races, King of the Cheap Claimers, where you do a game with 10 races all in the same category? Because I think, that would kind of be fascinating. Turf would be hard because some of the races might get rained off, but has anyone ever suggested that, or has anyone ever asked you to do something like that? Because I think a game like that would be a lot of fun.
Sure. The short answer is yes. And the first one that we did is stakes, so all stakes game. The turf one we tried last year, and again, it's like Arlington's off the turf, so what do you do?
Right.
But really, every little layer of complexity or specificity narrows the pool down. So as we continue to grow, those types of things is even with like exotics or other things, they're just different ways of playing. Everyone pretty much understands the way that the win place and all these components to the games right now. So all those layers kind of, limit the pool a little bit. But once we continue to add players to the pool and get more specifics, then it's going to be easier for us to run those types. And they're definitely on our radar.
Couldn't ask for a better answer.
And we definitely have done all turf games before. Hey, Matt, greatly appreciate you jumping in with us on short notice tonight. Seriously, keep up the good work. And folks, if you have any questions, any issues with DerbyWars, your guy, Matt Benton, can be reached at support at DerbyWars at any time. The 100K game coming up this Saturday, and looking forward to a big one, Matt.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me.
Be well.
Matt Benton, the racing secretary from DerbyWars.com, here tonight on the Wednesday night webcast. Charlestown's 6th race, the 8th contest race, has just closed. Mountaineer's 7th, a 5-horse affair, and Penn National's 8th have both gone off. And we'll get those results in a couple, just a couple minutes. And soon after that, we'll be joined by the lovely and talented Katie Gensler. But Joe, Mr. Benton's an interesting young man.
I'm going to make a suggestion to you and Mark that you sign him to an Anthony Rizzo, Starlin Castro type contract. Lots of years, save some money on the back end because that guy is worth locking up for quite a few years into the future.
Yeah, the problem is, Joe, he's got a great deal in line already. He's no
renegotiation.
You know what? Timing is an amazing thing, and the reality is his timing with Derby Wars has been great because literally when he joined the company is when we started taking off, and part of his plan is, incentive based on, numbers, and the numbers are way up in the last, much to our surprise in a way that we'd never thought, he's doing okay these days, Joe.
Yeah, no, that's good. And he obviously cares a lot about it. He obviously has a lot of good ideas. He's obviously very detail-oriented. He's obviously passionate, very well-spoken. He loves the game. I mean, if you were putting together a job description to hire someone for that job, I mean, he fits it perfectly. So congratulations to you guys for hiring him. And that's obviously turned out very, very well. And I don't see it changing anytime soon because he obviously has great ideas and he cares about what he does.
Yeah, the only negative is we can't get him to move to Louisville because his wife is making too much money in Phoenix.
Terrible. That's a terrible problem for him to have.
Yeah, it's a terrible, terrible problem. So looks like we got a couple more races in the books. We'll get that leaderboard updated. But I think we have Katie ready and to go on the line. And before we bring her in, Joe, just once again, you gave her start. You saw something in her that, quite frankly, a lot of people might not have seen in her.
I saw a lot of things that a lot of other people did see in her, which is what I talked about earlier. Attractive, bubbly, hardworking. It's funny because she was on Horsing Around for the one season, and then she wound up leaving, I believe, for San Diego. I think she took a real estate job or she worked in a different industry. She was gone for a few years. She came back to Chicago, and Jim Miller actually gave her start on the air as far as, doing some promotional stuff, some marketing stuff, and eventually starting to analyze races. And like I said, when Katie did Horsing Around TV, she did features. She did a great feature on Frankie Lovato, which, just a horrible story what happened to his wife, several months ago. Love Frankie. It was a great piece that she did on him. And, she made her mark in that area, but she wasn't a handicapper. And you just don't become a handicapper overnight. And you just don't get put on the air as a handicapper. A year later, she put a lot of work in. She learned. She asked questions. And now she's very good at what she does. So she's not just a pretty face. She's not just good on the air. She's learned her trade. And I think of all the things that she's done, that's what I'm the most proud of her for, is that she's really taken what she does seriously.
Yeah, she's I don't know if she's listening right now. I'll say it when I'm sure that she is, but all I know is I would have bet a lot of money against what's happened to her happening when we back in the day when we did the show.
Yeah, she was a little raw back then, but everybody deserves a chance and everybody needs experience. And when Jim decided to put her on the air, I was like, Katie, you'll do well on the air with the promotional type stuff, the marketing type stuff. But once she started handicapping races, I'm like, oh boy, how is this going to go? And like I said, from Presque Isle to Fairgrounds and now to Keeneland, obviously if you've got that Keeneland job, you've got people there that pay close attention not only to your on-camera presence, but how well you speak to the audience. So, again, hats off to her for her development.
Justin Hill is continues to have an amazing night connecting dots here in the DerbyWars Wednesday night webcast game, scoring in 6 of the first 7 races. And there seem to be a number of people connecting the dots because even though the chalk keeps rolling in, the prices in this contest are tremendous. Mo Skeet scored in the first 6 races tonight. Not all winners, of course, but 4 wins in 2 seconds. Jason Lures scored in 5 of the first 7 races tonight. These, a lot of players, Joe, are doing really good things in this contest this evening.
Yeah, it's one of those contests where everyone's seemingly, the vast majority of the people have brought their A game, and it's at the lower level tracks, but from what I've seen, the racing has been pretty formful. So like Matt said earlier, if you're sticking to your strategy and picking your horses and not trying to bomb too early, this is one of those contests where, good handicapping, formful races, and may the best man or woman win.
Lots of great stuff going on here on DerbyWars. Of course, the 100K game coming up on Saturday. Satellites tomorrow, a 4-spot satellite tomorrow, a 10-spot satellite on Friday. Now, Ember, if we do have Katie on the line, would you put her into Skype and have her join with me and Mr. Christofek, or are we waiting until 8:30? I'll give it a couple seconds. 5. There she is. Or I don't see her beautiful face. I just see a piece of blue there. But Katie, you there?
This is Katie's first venture into Skype, everybody.
I don't think it.
No, it is. She told me today when we were texting back and forth, I'm like, Katie, how could you not be on Skype? You're a professional at Keeneland. She goes,
Shut up.
Shut up. See, what a perfect introduction. She goes, I use FaceTime. So then we hear her voice. Tell her how to click that little button on the camera with the line through it, Dave.
There's a little blue circle with a camera and a anti-line in it. Just click that and we'll get to see your gorgeousness, Katie.
I don't see the little line, but I'll just.
There we go.
Okay.
There.
What's going on?
What's up, guys? Sorry.
Getting ready for Keeneland on Friday?
I'm ready to go. I'm excited.
What about this change to dirt? I, for one, I kind of like the poly track.
I don't know. I feel like you got to go back to the old days when it was always on dirt. So I'm happy it's back on dirt. And I don't know if I remember the days when Keeneland was on the dirt, but
it's a lot different than different than it is now.
Yeah, I'm very happy with it, and it seems like everybody's happy with it, and can't wait to now have the bluegrass stakes on there or back on there. So that'll be really exciting on Saturday.
Yeah, the bluegrass is actually a Derby prep again. The last few years it was poly track and a lot of turf horses running in and winning the race, and not a lot of legitimate Kentucky Derby horses going into it. But Carp Diem is more than legitimate. He's going to be the favorite in the bluegrass on Saturday. It's a pretty good field through and through. But, Keeneland wanted the Breeders' Cup, right, Katie? And they wanted to be, a Derby prep with the bluegrass. And there were lots of reasons for them to return back to the traditional surface.
Yeah, and it seems like everybody's doing it, right? They gave it a try, the synthetic, and I think it's the right thing to do. They want to be more prominent with the bluegrass, and they even moved it up a week, which I think is nice, and I think it's going to say a lot, especially with Carpe Diem. And if this horse runs well on Saturday, I think he's definitely going to be the horse to beat heading into the Kentucky Derby. So I'm really excited. I can't wait to watch him compete, and some other horses too, but I think he's the one that we really have to, keep an eye on.
Hey guys, just let me interrupt for one moment. We had a bomber win the 6th at Charlestown, the 8th contest race, completely turning this event upside down. And our new leader is Fred 3523. That's John Odell. Why he has a named Fred 3523, only John knows, but he leads by $20.60 over Sasha 7 And the Undertaker, Stephen Thompson. Dr. Trezza, you are 2020 up into fourth. And Crazy Butter, that's Stephen Merrick up into fifth. Justin Hill in sixth. And there's a look at your leaderboard with 2 races left in the Wednesday night webcast game, both from Mountaineer. The 8th goes off in about 6 minutes' time. Now, Katie, you got your first on-camera experience at horsing around thanks to a bearded guy on Skype right now.
I blame him.
We all blame him.
I take full credit for you. Go ahead, Dave.
What I want to know, Katie, is, I learned about handicapping the same way a lot of guys and gals learned about handicapping, by actually betting and going through the whole process and learning that way. You kind of backed into it, but what I want to know is what methods and how did you go about learning the art of handicapping?
Well, I should tell everybody the story about how I came up to Joe and I was like, I want to do this for real. I want to be a handicapper. And I knew like the basics. Like my brothers are big handicappers. They taught me what trifectas and superfectas were and pick 3s and pick 4s when I was 11 years old, 12 years old. And I'm so tall that I was able to go to Arlington, the mutuals, and bet myself at like 12 years old. So I knew how to bet. Like I knew how to make a win bet and place bet. Anyways, long story short, I went up to Joe and I was like, I want to do this for real and I want to be a handicapper. And he gave me a glossary of all the horse racing terms and he said, you got to learn this first. And it was just basic stuff. What are the irons at the on the saddle, and what is even a whip? It was so basic and I learned it all. It was probably about 250 words, 300 words. Anyways, and also I, just paid attention. I think repetition pays off when you're playing the races. If you are a newcomer to the sport, you just, I feel, you just learn something new every time you watch a race and watch replays. And Joe also pointed out that he would, pay attention to a specific horse, not just the winner. Say he really likes the 1 horse and the 3 wins. Well, see what happened to the 1. Why did the 1 horse not win? And the 3 horse did, and you can even watch the replays, but pay attention to what that horse is doing specifically. So I really took that in and paid attention to his handicapping and many others. I had some other mentors, including my husband, who was a thoroughbred trainer, and he helped me out a lot. And I do give credit to some other, Chicago guys, and even Ron Mullis helped me at Presque Downs. So a lot of people were very patient with me, but it finally all clicked, I would say, about 6 years ago, 7 years ago.
And you mentioned Presque. There was a track announcer there you used to go jogging with back in the day. How did you get that gig? And how did you get that gig?
I love that. Well, I had to send a demo like you do for any gig. So I already had been working at Hawthorne and making picks there. So I have to give credit to Jim Miller too. He was the one that was like, all right, you pick 1 horse a day. And then, all right, you can start picking 1 horse a race. And then, all right, well, now 2 or 3 horses a race. So he was just slowly easing me into it after I did horsing around with Joe and just getting the feel of being on camera and doing interviews and stuff. And so I just auditioned and got the gig at Presque Downs, and I was there for 6 years. I can't believe it. They even asked me back this year, but it just doesn't work with having a little one, of course.
So, Katie, go ahead, Dave.
A little one? I didn't know this. You're a mom?
I am. And I'm hoping that I'm not going to wake him up. He's right next door sleeping.
Dave's got to quit telling so many funny jokes and keep you from laughing so much over there.
Yeah, I do have a little one. He's almost 16 months. His name's Hayden. And he's learning the races. He loves to watch horses on TV and stuff, and he can't wait to get to Keeneland.
Yeah, Katie was in full while she was on the air, Dave.
I was.
Obviously, with camera shots, you can, oftentimes you just like you don't get to see the big bowling ball there.
You You were on your A game tonight.
He's never
If
been
you
my
watched it
strength.
show horse players, you definitely saw I was popping there. But yeah, they hit it pretty well, and I was grateful. They always shoot you from like here up. So yeah, I have a little one, so he's great. He's a yearling.
Now, is your husband still in the training game? Does he still work for the same gentleman that he used to work for?
No, he actually left the business. You know, he may end up back in it, but right now he decided to take a different avenue and something a little bit more consistent. And you know, there's so many ups and downs, especially being a trainer and playing the whole game. So, you know, I think we'll start investing in owning some more horses. We had 20 horses up until last year. So I think we'll get back into that part of it because I mean, there's nothing better than being in the winner's circle with a horse that you own. So we're hoping to get back into that part of it after we pay off our vet bills.
There you go. Now, Katie, we talked about horsing around earlier. We talked about the Frankie Lovato feature that you did. You also did a feature with Leanne Davis, who is still a thoroughbred trainer in the Midwest. Leanne's an absolute sweetheart. She did a lot of features on horsing around where you went back to her barn and she put you to work for a day. So that had to kind of open your eyes as to what this business is about before you even got started on the TV end.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a lot of not glamorous parts to this business and some people don't realize that. You know, you go to Keeneland and you see everybody dressed up and, you know, you think, wow, this is awesome. But I mean, there's a lot of hard workers there. And if you go to the backside, you get to witness it. And I did get to witness it firsthand. Thank you to Joe and Leanne. That was awesome. I mean, Hank later on my husband found out that I had done that and then he started putting me to work. So I don't know. So I've done my share of, you know, mucking stalls and grooming horses. I know all of that now. So I mean, I am thankful to that. And that was quite an experience. And I had no idea that that went down until I experienced that day, basically a day in the life of a trainer and a groom. So that was pretty tough.
Yeah, you were a natural at that one. You were definitely worn out at the end of the day. I don't know if you heard anything that Dave and I said about horsing around or about you and about your progress before you came on the air. But I have one more question here, then I'm going to turn it back over to Dave. When you were working on Horsing Around TV and working on the front desk at Arlington, and you met this character called the Maven, what did you think? What did you think of him?
I love that. The Maeve is awesome. He is a great guy and he's got a lot of energy and who doesn't like the Maeve? He's fun to be around and that's basically it. I haven't seen him in a long time. So, but he's a great guy and that's about it.
I'm here. It's like I'm being talked about like I'm not even here.
Well, see, but Katie, you saw back then when you were just getting started how intense he was about handicapping and analyzing races and how passionate he was for it. When you see people that are that much into their jobs or that much into what they do, whether it be for work to make a living or a hobby, does that kind of fuel you? Because obviously you had a lot of fuel and you've come a long way since the horsing around days to be the paddock host at Keeneland, which is one of the most coveted jobs for anybody that's analyzing races on the air. Seeing people that are that into it, does that fuel you to become the best you can be?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think if you're passionate, if you can see passion from other people, then I think it definitely, you know, makes you want to be more passionate about your job. And I mean, where you only get one chance at, you know, living this life and you got to make sure that you're enjoying it the entire time. So, you know, be able to go to work. I mean, I don't even call it a job. It's just, it's so much fun. And I love talking about horses, picking horses. And I do see guys that enjoy just being there and being at the races. If you have that chance to do that and you can make a living off of it, I definitely applaud you. So, you know, just hard work and lots of studying and just paying attention. And of course, some days you're going to have some rough days, but I mean, to be able to do that every day and just play races across the country is awesome. And I think people at all ends, I think trainers and owners and grooms, I think everybody enjoys it in this industry. And that's why it's so hard to get out of it.
Well, one thing, if you get to know Katie as a handicapper, you'll know that she always has an angle. If you get to know Katie personally, you'll really get to know that Katie always has an angle.
I do. I do. That's my husband and Joe. Yeah, we crack about that all the time.
Well, I'm glad Hank can crack about that with you too, because that's great.
Yeah, I know. And every time I catch myself, saying my angle, I always think of you, Joe.
Well, that's good. I'm glad I had some influence on your life, Katie.
Yeah, thank you. No, you've had a lot of influence, and of course, I'm very appreciative of that. And thanks for having me on. And so this is what you guys do? You just sit here and hang out?
We just babble for 2 hours on Wednesday nights. That's pretty much it. We talk about handicapping tournaments, and we need to get you more involved in handicapping tournaments, Katie. And certainly, a main focus on Derby Wars over the next 3 weeks are going to be the races from Keeneland. The fall meet was the first meet, as we mentioned, that they haven't had Polytrack, that they went back to dirt. With the meet coming up on Friday, Katie, seriously, were there any biases, any trends, anything that we could take out of the fall meet with the switch to dirt that we might want to look forward to coming up on Friday for the spring meet?
That's a great question. I do think that, on the dirt, I didn't see any, I think it's very tough to come from way off the pace. So I think you do need to put that into consideration on the dirt. So keep a close tab on that. I do think that you got to look at connections at Keeneland. I think that that's really important as well. And especially somebody like Kenny McPeak, he seems to always get away at very good odds. And so there's a couple of horses just this weekend I'm going to keep a close tab on that he's has that are even 15, 20 to 1. He's one of those guys that he's a very good trainer, high percentage trainer, and he always sneaks them in there, and it tends to be a positive ROI. So you have to keep a watchful eye on connections, watch for horses that do have that advantage of being able to either sit on the lead, press the pace, or stalk the pace. I mean, you have to, of course, see how all the horses shape up in the race, but I don't see a ton of horses come flying late. And that's about it. You can watch races throughout the day and see also where horses are winning coming from too. But Julian Leperoux, he picks up a lot of sharp mounts. Of course, top riders, you have Velasquez, Castellano. You got to keep an eye on who they're riding to.
And with the return of racing in the spring meet at Keeneland, also means the debut of 2-year-olds for 2015. And who's the king of the 2-year-old races at Keeneland, Katie?
Let me think about that. His initials are WW.
Yeah, him.
Yeah, you got to watch out for Wes Ward. I mean, his even when their horses, even when they don't have fast drills, sometimes I think that happened in October. There was even horses that didn't look good on paper or weren't training as fast, and that boom, they're gone. So, of course, he's one to watch. Catalano, he's got good 2-year-olds. Gosh, I'm sure there's some others that I could think of. Give me a second here, but I think Westwart is the one though that you immediately. He's got one in every race, if not two. So
who's taller, you or Wesley Ward?
What's that?
Who's taller, you or Wesley Ward?
I'm taller than most in this industry.
That might be a dead heat.
Yeah.
Wesley, I mean, he was a jockey at one point, but a very tall one.
Yeah, let's just say, for camels.
Let's play a game. We'll call it Who's Taller.
Okay. Ebanks or Ward?
This is a great podcast.
I think it's Ronnie.
I think it's when I wear heels. But I do wear flats most of the time because I have to walk back and forth in that Keeneland paddock. So, and watch out for that chalet. It's going to be out there. You guys know what that is?
Oh.
The new viewing area in the paddock that they just added.
Tell us about it.
Stumped you guys.
Yeah.
There's going to be a new viewing chalet. It's going to be I think that's going to be basically a VIP area. It's going to be like a test run, but it's going to be you're right there. It's going to be a little bit above the ground, but it's going to be a different angle than what we usually get to see. They built it over the parking lot and over the brick wall, so you'll get to see that. That's pretty cool.
Wow! So that's I'm sure that was an addition with, the Breeders' Cup in mind, which I'm sure is got to be
Yeah.
very exciting for you in the fall.
Yeah. So you guys will have to come look at that. And there's a lot of obviously renovations or upgrades done to that track to get all those people in there. And I think they're just going to do a lot of test runs during the spring meet. So we're excited. It'll be a lot of fun.
I just want to know if GD Hieronymus is going to be flying droids over Keeneland in preparation for Breeders' Cup.
Possibly. He might be watching right now. He's ready to go.
Yeah, I sent GD a picture of a droid at Dubai because I know he loves those things. He can go on and on about them, and he's like, they're watching you. So any idea of technology in GD's head, and he's all over it.
I know they have. I have to catch up too because they're talking about some microsite to go to get background information on all the horses, including the bluegrass. So they're going to have like all this bio and information that you can get on all these horses. And I'm not even like completely clear on it. So, I mean, they're obviously Keeneland is always tries to be ahead of the game, or, if I think Santa Anita and Keeneland do a really good job of just trying to keep up to date information and technology and all that. But so I'll get more information about that.
Yeah, well, for a racetrack that didn't even have an announcer, how long ago was it, Dave? 15 or 20 years ago? Didn't even have an announcer. They've come a long way since those days.
Yes, they have.
And now they have one of the best. I could listen to Kurt Becker for days on end.
Oh, he's really good. I always try to look for his voice in NASCAR, but I guess I just don't know what channel he's on because we do watch NASCAR, and I'm always trying to listen for him. But I never hear him. Have you guys ever heard him, NASCAR?
No, but I've heard him call harness races.
Yeah. So harness, thoroughbred, and NASCAR. But I would like to hear him do the whole car thing. That would be cool.
It would be cool. Quick question, Katie. What do we got to get you to? What do we got to do to get you playing handicapping contests?
Well, I've done a couple of like small ones, but no, I'm ready. Just pay my fee and I'm in.
See, perfect example. The girls always got an angle.
No, I would love to play some more. I've
seriously, Dave, we will comp her. You get her in, get her to sign up for DerbyWars. We'll comp her an entry into one of these contests. And, whether it's a, closed contest or a live contest, what day she's not working, we got to get her involved.
Well, hopefully Mr. Midland is watching in Louisville tonight, and he will act upon that.
You're going to have to tell me more about these DerbyWars, too, exactly what it entails. What do I have to pick? You just watch the prep races and pick courses?
No, basically, Katie, long story short, DerbyWars, like the contest we're doing tonight, just like an 8 or 10 or 12 race contest for various, depending on tracks or time of days, and just we put together little games. Like, for example, Keeneland's opening day on Friday. There'll be all kinds of games just involving the Keeneland races, and they're $2 win and place mythical bets. 15-1 cap on win, 8-1 cap on place. There's a very reasonable takeout. We do take a little bit of money out, but there's almost 90% goes back to the players, and it's a lot of fun. Joe, help me out here. I'm babbling again.
Well, Katie, you can get into a tournament where it costs you $5 to get in, or you can get into a tournament that costs you $250 to get in. There's tournaments where there's 100 people. There's tournaments where there's 5 people. So there's a lot of different options at DerbyWars based on your budget, what kind of races you like to play, and the time of day you like to play. So, we'll throw some options at you. You pick the one that suits you best. Sans the $500 entry fee game, and you'll be live. I think she's looking at it right now.
I hope so.
I love it. I definitely will do it, and then I'll come back and talk about it for sure.
There you go. Perfect.
So I'll come back on and talk about it. Well, Friday's our opening day at Keeneland's a great card. I was going to say race starting with the pick 5. I mean, those last 5 races are very tough. So that should be a good day to play. You guys hear me?
I'm curious, Katie, if you're going to try to beat the Amos Chalk in the last race in the Super High 5.
Well, for my picks, because I already have my picks in, I took him on top, but there is a few other horses, I guess, to play. Did you pick another horse?
I haven't made official picks yet, but I'm part of the twinspires.com players pool, so I have to give my opinion. So I've looked at all 5 races, but I haven't formulated any sort of strategy yet. But
if you're looking for a trend, love Tom. He's a great trainer. I mean, he was once again the leading trainer at Fairgrounds, and he's got sharp horses, especially sprinters, and at this level, the low claiming level. But if you go back to October, I believe he had at least 2 similar looking horses, looking horses on paper, and I think they both got beat. Maybe 3 horses, and I remember seeing it, and he's like, I don't know what it is. It was just in a rut during October's meet, but maybe that's something to keep in mind. We'll see if the trend continues with him getting beat, and I did take the horse on top, so I'm probably going to get beat now.
Okay, well, when you're in the paddock talking about that race, you can think about this interview.
Oh yeah, and I, of course, everybody, because I have to plug myself. So if you follow at Keeneland Racing and also at Katie Gensler, I'm always giving live paddock picks. So I always try to give, and on air, but also I tweet the best looking horse to me in the paddock, and I've done pretty well actually with giving some pretty good price horses. Of course, I always make sure that they fit in the race too. I mean, you can have a good looking horse that just doesn't fit in the race, or especially in the last race of the day. So make sure you tune in to at Keeneland Racing and at Katie Gensler. So we'll see who looks good. I'm particularly interested in the 4 and 7. So write that down for race 10 on Friday.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing, Katie, is you gotta file your picks in advance, but you might see a horse that pops to you in the paddock that you don't have in your top 3 or 4, which gives you the opportunity to then, provide that information via Twitter.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing everybody has to remember when they're looking at, my selections online, and everybody else's too, Mike Patagula's, Tom Leach's, is that, yeah, we have to, I personally, when I wager a race, I might, besides like the pick 4s, and, I do like to play the pick 4s a lot, more than any other multi-race wager. But I do like to see horses heading out on the track and post-parade, and so does Joe. I know you like that a lot. So that's really important to me. So I love being in the paddock. I love seeing the horses firsthand. So I try to do my best I can to tweet, as long as I can get the tweet through, because of thousands of people there.
Oh, yeah. Especially on Bluegrass Day. It's tough.
Yeah, it is hard.
Okay. David, any final thoughts?
No, just we got to get Katie signed up on DerbyWars, get her up and playing. We have a 2,500-hour Keeneland game on Friday, for example. 58 players. Let's have a look at the board real quick. Darn computer.
$2,500 buy-in?
No,
win.
$2,500 prize pool, $49 buy-in. First prize is $1,000, 58 entries. I mean, there's an example of one of our games, and our big game on Saturday is a $100,000 game with a $50,000 first prize.
What's the buy-in on Saturday?
That's $875.
Friday's much doable.
That $100,000 game with the $50,000 first prize. Did you see the look on Katie's face? It definitely got her attention.
No, it's amazing. It gets a lot of people's attention, and we have satellites and qualifiers tomorrow, Friday, and probably on Saturday as well for that $100,000 game. And we really look forward to adding Keeneland to the DerbyWars menu on Friday, as racing in the Bluegrass business will be picking up in Lexington on Friday, and the person bringing you all the action from the paddock is the lovely and talented Katie Gensler, who joined us tonight here on the Wednesday night webcast. Katie, we really appreciate your time. Hopefully we didn't disturb Hayden too much, and I'll see you in a couple weeks.
Hey, it's great to see you again, and thank you guys. And just remember, it's diapers. I got to buy diapers, so I'm going to have to figure out some way to get into those DerbyWars. So I'm interested, and hope to see everybody at Keeneland. Of course, I know people are all over the nation, but tweet us. I'm there. I'm on standby, so I'm ready.
Katie, are you working Derby?
Yeah, well, I'm doing the same gig I did the last 2 years. I was this close to working with you, Joe, and I know, but
I know. I thought that was going to happen.
Next year, hopefully. But I was already booked in the mansion to work, so I'll
Okay.
be up there. Yeah,
All
I'll be
right, I will see you closing week at Keeneland, and I will see you Derby weekend as well.
Yeah, sounds like a plan. And when will I see you, Dave?
I think I'm gonna be at Keeneland 2 weeks from today. I'm hoping that I can make it down there 2 weeks from today as a prelude to the webcast 2 weeks from tonight.
He's got to squeeze that into his busy schedule.
We would love to see you down there. So make sure you come say hello. Come look at that new chalet. Hopefully it works out well. Hopefully it stays together. And I'll see you guys all soon. Happy opening weekend in a couple of days.
You got it.
Excellent.
Thanks, Katie.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Wow. Can't believe it. Little girl's grown up, Joe.
Yeah, she's come a long way, and she's a professional, and she's looking forward to Keeneland getting started. And I met her husband Hank. He's a great guy. Very happy for them as a couple, and to have Hayden, the 16-month-old, and Hank. At some point, he's a horseman. I know he's got the itch to get back in the game in some way, shape, or form. Right now, it's about family. It's about their child. It's about their future. And Katie's doing Keeneland, so she's kind of got the Kurt Becker type gig where she does just Keeneland, and maybe she'll pick up some more work as time goes on. But I know right now that her little boy is her priority. So they're doing things the right way, and like I said earlier and many times on this webcast, I'm very proud of her.
She's doing great things, and certainly her future in this business is very, very bright. There wasn't a lot of change after the penultimate race of the Wednesday night webcast with a 6-5 shot winning at Mountaineer, and Fred 3523 has still a lead of $20.60 over Sasha. That's Dennis Liu, The Undertaker, and so we got a nice Mr. Barbaboli and Stephen Thompson tied for second behind John Odell. Dr. Trezza in fourth. Crazy Butter in fifth. Stephen Merrick with 64.40. And Joe, while out at the Horseplayer World Series this week, there were some DerbyWars players. While we didn't necessarily win or finish that great, for example, Barbara Bowley, she won the day money on Saturday. She had a top 20. I think she finished near the top 20. Paul Sherman, a regular DerbyWars player, finished second in the contest. And there were just a ton of DerbyWars players out in Vegas at the Horseplayer World Series last week.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a tournament player, you're a tournament player. And, that's one of the most coveted prizes, obviously financially. Great camaraderie, as you said, going out to dinner 4 or 5 nights in a row with all kinds of different people, schmoozing as you're so good at doing, I'm sure. So that's a lot of fun. I mean, there's dual purposes. Obviously, you're there playing in the tournament, but you're also there to promote DerbyWars, to talk to the players. And I think that's a big part of this game, Dave, and this is something that I've tried to do over the years is, even doing TV at different tracks or being on broadcasts or doing webcasts like this. I mean, we're in this game like everybody else to have fun. We just happen to make a living doing it. So when we get an opportunity to talk to the players, to, socialize with the players, that's our element. I mean, that's what we do too. So really enjoy those opportunities. I wish they came along more often. But yeah, I'm sure you guys had a great time, and looking forward to the next opportunity where you can see all of those DerbyWars players in one place.
Yeah, I don't know where I found the energy from. Like Friday night, we were out with Moomy, and it's like everybody knows that I'm a big Eric Moomy fan. So re-energizing, re-rallying to go out with Eric wasn't too difficult. But on Saturday night, I got to tell you, I found something that I didn't think I had. I was down, I was depressed, I was miserable. It banged my head against the wall for 3 blanking days. too many seconds, too many tough trips, too much yelling and screaming around me. And normally I just wanted to like crawl into my bed at 6 o'clock and go to sleep. But I'm glad I actually did find the energy, and I think it probably had something to do with my halfway decent result the next day, as opposed to just wallowing in self-pity, which is what I would have done on Saturday night had I not essentially been forced into being social. And well, it all worked out in the end.
It just goes to show you, and that's a perfect example that, it's difficult. It can be tough. It can be frustrating. But at the same time, Sunday was a brand new day. And the fact that you were getting tough trips and the fact that you kept running second meant you were on live horses all weekend, and that, you were in a good place handicapping-wise. The results didn't show it. As long as you stuck to what you were doing, which you did, the results finally came around for you. So I congratulate you on that finish. I'm glad that, you had a fun time socially. It's really well balanced when you can have that good time socially and come out of it with more money than you put in. On a tournament to tournament basis, that's really all you can ask for.
And the one guy that's going to have the most fun tonight appears to be our leader, Fred 3523, as we did have the 8-horse take the finale at Mountaineer. That was Rockin' Rowan. And Fred 3523 had that horse, so he's not going to get caught. We did have a big price runner-up in the 3 or the 5, I believe, ran second. It's 16-1. Nobody in the top 10 had that horse, so we'll see how shot for the Monter Awards, but it does appear as if that Mr. John Odell will be the winner of the Wednesday night webcast game and take down the lion's share of the $4,000 with that $1,400 first prize. So just 2 weeks from now, Joe, you know what? We're going to have Woodbine back on the Wednesday night webcast, and I know myself and a lot of the players are really looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, that's, a little step up, obviously, quality-wise, in a different kind of element.
It was.
What's that? A big step up. Yeah, I mean, yeah, and you're going to get full fields. You're going to get some grass racing, obviously, which completely changes everything when you get higher quality horses on grass. So I don't know what the plans are for the Wednesday night webcast once Woodbine rolls into town. But, I know we did 5,000 on this game a couple weeks ago. So, there's a lot of different options. And either way, we get the players in here. They have a lot of fun. We do the webcast. We have a tournament. But taking it to Woodbine kind of raises the level of play, I would say, just a little bit.
I think it raises it quite a bit, and I can't imagine that we won't be doing $5,000 games consistently once Woodbine kicks in. In the For What It's Worth department, I'm actually going to be in Toronto next week and might actually have a dinner with the new racing secretary there, Stewie, while I'm up there, and perhaps we can discuss some things regarding DerbyWars and the Wednesday night webcast. Who knows? But looking forward to spending some time north of the border in the land of the tragically hip next week.
Yeah, and you're going to drink some Labatt's probably, and maybe you'll go jogging with Stewie too, like you did the announcer from Presque Isle.
Hey, by the way, XRT tomorrow, Joe. Local rock and roll station. Friday featured artist. All Canada tomorrow, Rush in the Hip.
Wow, where's that?
I'm just saying, a featured artist on XRT tomorrow.
Oh, the featured artist, nice.
Tragically Hip and Rush tomorrow.
Yeah, very cool. So we know where your ears will be tomorrow. You haven't experienced life in full until you've been to a Tragically Hip concert with Dave Goodfriend. I did have the pleasure of doing that several years ago, and it was as good as advertised.
Okay, on that note, here are the results from tonight's Wednesday night webcast game. Winning the $1,400 first prize, John Odell with a winning score of $99.80, scoring in 6 of the 9 races, including the max winner in race 6 at Charlestown. Our runner-up was Justin Hill, $73.20. Justin did a superb job of handicapping tonight, also scoring in 7 of the 10 races. Two-way tied for third between Dennis Liu and Stephen Thompson, two hard-hitting veteran tournament players. Two-way tie for fifth, Skeeter Saska and Dr. Treza, UR 2020, tying for fifth with $67. In seventh place, Crazy Butter, Stephen Merrick, $64.40. Jason Avila, J Guppy 93, in eighth with $57. Even though he's got that LA Kings icon next to his name. Kings aren't making the playoffs, buddy. Derby Duet gets a shot. Colleen Ryan finishing ninth and 52 with $52.40. Jason Lower and the Hater tying for 10th at $51.80. And Humansy finishing 12th at $51 even. And big Yankee fan, Willie Moore, I think we're going to send you out a t-shirt for being the Bubble Boy. Some more Derby Wars t-shirts have arrived. And Apologies Ember hosted a bad job of giving away Derby Wars t-shirts tonight. And on that note, guys, Mr. Christopher, back from Dubai. Keeneland opening up on Friday. Big Derby preps, the 100K games on Saturday. Any final thoughts, sir?
Cubs Cardinals on Sunday.
No bleachers.
No, I know. No bleachers, but, you know, this is the best time of year for sports. Baseball season starting, playoffs right around the corner for our Blackhawks and our Bulls. You know, Final Four this weekend, Derby preps, Kentucky Derby right around the corner. I love NFL football. I like college football, but there's no better time for sports during the course of the year than early April, moving into May and June. So looking forward to it. If you're a sports fan and a horse racing fan, lots to keep your mind on and to pay attention to, and hopefully come across a few winners along the way.
All right, Joe, thanks for your time tonight. Great working with you. And thank our guest, Matt Benton, the racing secretary for Derby Wars, and the lovely and talented Katie Gensler, whose work everyone will be watching starting this Friday at Keeneland. $100,000 game this Saturday on Derby Wars. Satellites tomorrow. Satellites on Friday. Congratulations to John Odell, Fred 3523, for winning tonight's $4,000 Wednesday night webcast game, taking home a prize of $1,400. For Joe Christofek, I'm Dave Goodfriend. We'll see you next Wednesday here with the webcast from Derby Wars. Good night, all.